not try, use, or believe anything you hear or see on this show, especially at home or anywhere else, or at any time of the day or anywhere in the northern and southern hemisphere. We know where you live. This show's content may be used in Florida only with the express written permission of the governor, at least one used car salesman, and the commissioner of Major League Baseball. No Budget Productions and Lack of Fun Films present TV for Oxymorons, the show that asks the questions why not, and who knows, to provide all you oxymorons out there with the answers and advice for facing everyday issues and concerns. Now, to take your calls and questions for today's guest expert, here's your host, just back from a mining expedition in the Solomon Islands, where he fell in love with the lovely Bathsheba and in-flight beverage service, and shot before a live studio audience. Let's hear it for your host, Hieronymus Bosch!
Welcome. Our format is simple. We take topics of vital concern and interest of the people of the North Shire and invite a guest expert on to answer their questions. Our questions are fed to me by our screener and former presidential candidate, Ron DeSensor, and then our guest expert will answer the questions. Remember, the number to call is 888-543-5569. That's 888-453-5689. These calls may be used for training purposes, and you may have to listen to endless elevator music while awaiting for the next available agent. I apologize. I just got off a long flight, and they served far too many booze. Our topic for today is gardening in Vermont, and our guest expert is Dr. Chauncey Gardner, professor of biology, gardening, botany, and head bingo coach at Cucamonga University in Maine, where their motto in Latin is Post Nabisco, Kellogg, Gen Mills. Translation, you send us a check, we'll send you a degree of your choice. Professor Gardner.
Don't be so formal. You can call me Dr. Gardner.
Well, thank you. Now here's our first question from a recent migrant from Italy, from Sandgate. Ima stuck here. Ima asks, given Vermont's climate, what's the best and most reliable crop you can grow at her home garden?
Well, you're from Italy and used to moderate weather, lots of sun, ripe sweet eggplants, and Roma tomatoes. They're not the easiest or the most reliable crop to grow here. So to answer your question specifically, as it relates to reliability, I'd have to say rocks. Yes, rocks. And that would concur with the definitive text on the subject by my colleague Wayne Johnson, that about the only thing that you can do with rocks is line the borders of your garden or make rock candy. Anything you get after rocks is a gardening win.
Our next question comes from Always Be NIMBY. She asks, what's the best way to handle bugs and pests?
Let's break it into two parts: bugs and insects in general, and pests. You live in Vermont, heavily wooded, open meadows, lots of vegetation. It's going to be packed with lots of bugs and pests. Just part of the natural ecology. In nature's scheme of things, insects and bugs play an important role in the cycle of life. The best way to handle them is to park your cars away from your house, lock all the doors, and do whatever you can to make it look like you're not at home. One foolproof technique researched at CookU is to leave a note that you have left Vermont to visit them in New York City. You can also go to the home decor store and buy 40 or so welcome mats. Leave a note on your door saying the key is under the mat, and then take the remaining mats and place them about 7/10 of a mile apart from each other and leading away from the house into a deeply wooded area until you run out of mats. Of course, it also helps if you hire a local to pick up the bats after your pests have gone past them. That way, you'll have them to use again. This method of pest control works best during foliage, skiing, and hunting seasons when pests seem to be most active.
What about insects like flies and ants and aphids?
Yes, indeed. Again, subdivide the enemy into groups and then use the right tool for the right job.
Could you be more specific?
If you insist, let's start with the flying insects, flies, wasps, etc. But before I get into the specifics, I should tell you to try to avoid chemical sprays at all costs. They can prove harmful to pets and children, and you, of course. And if you have children, you might want to consider the future costs of college, but always try to use more natural methods.
Like,
Well, let's say for your larger flyers, a tennis racket would work, and its size covers a much greater area than a traditional swatter. For those that want to practice humane insect catch and release, try a catcher's mitt or a mason jar with some Vermont maple syrup on the bottom. For crawlers like ants, some natural concoction in a sprayer may work. I prefer Italian dressing, since it will simultaneously season your salad type veggies. For ants, my research has surprisingly zeroed in on three pieces of music, the most effective being the theme from Zorba the Greek, followed by Hava Nagila and the Tarantella. Just locate your ants and start stomping on them to the music. Very satisfying, and your Apple Watch will record the amount of steps and calories.
we have time for two more questions. Our next question comes from ACLU. I believe that's pronounced Aklo. He's from Alaska. He says he's a high school senior with a low GPA, low board scores, does not play the oboe, and is not athletic. He wants to know more about Cucamonga University. He wants to know, what exactly does a bingo coach do?
Well, a bingo coach basically does his or her best. We motivate our players who play Division One bingo to pay attention and to be fast with their stamps. At CookU, it's not only an athletic activity, but also a religious one, since the game is so intertwined with our faith-based curriculum. CookU is also known for its marching band, who, in keeping with religious and political principles handed down by our founder, Dr. Devine, for well and good, are only capable of turning to the right, and we have high academic standards. At CookU, we believe in and practice no check left uncashed.
Okay, back to gardening. Ratso Rizzo of Hollywood, California asks, what kind of fertilizer do you use?
Oh, wow. Look, all living things need nutrition to survive. To thrive, your veggies need the proper soil and nutriments in that soil. Too few or the wrong type of nutriments is not good, and too much may burn your plant's roots. So I start off by asking myself a question. Self, what type of food do my plants desire? Once I have that answer, I ask myself, where can I get that food? And so the logical thing to do is to go to the nearest vegan restaurant. Who knows more about plant food? I order extra dishes, demand the doggy bag, and poof, my plants are fertilized with the foods they desire. And always remember what the Bible tells us. Happy plants make happy eating for animals and humans. I believe that's Ludicrous 12:15.
Well, thank you, Professor. And thank you for joining us. Join us next time on TV for Oxymorons, where we'll be discussing animal husbandry. Is it moral or not? Who's to judge? Should it be decriminalized? On behalf of all of us here, we wish you luck navigating a world full of oxymorons.